a tribunal. And of course, it leaned in favor of the All Progressives Congress. We're analyzing some of the points that were made. And today we're joined by Aisha Yesufu. She's an activist and describes herself as an active Nigerian citizen. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Let's talk about, yesterday's judgment and how it turned out. Were there any surprises for you, even though we knew that this matter was in court and there were certain expectations? You show your support for Mr. Peter Obi, and I don't know if you expected that he was going to win the court judgment yesterday or that things were going to turn out as they did.
So at the court yesterday, I wasn't surprised because we've had a trailer. So it's like we had a movie yesterday, but there was a trailer before that movie. And that trailer was the one that was done by our former Supreme Court Justice, Mary Odili. So by the time we saw that whole speech she had made, how she was praising the counsel to, I think it's Tinubu APC. I don't know which one is it for sure. And she was praising him and all of that. So for me personally, I already knew, okay, this was already done with. So yesterday at the just hearing the justices reading out all the things they were reading out, I really wasn't surprised because we've already seen the trailer to the movie.
Yeah, well, let's look into some of the details, and some of the rulings that were given. Of course, Kashim Shettima ruling was one of the earliest ones, saying that his double nomination, of course, that case was also, struck out. Apparently it was said that it wasn't done intentionally or something like that. There was also the 25%, Abuja, which of course was a major talking point in the months, post-election. There's also people who said that, previous Supreme Court rulings have already settled that, so it really shouldn't have come up again, amongst other things. So which of them for you was, maybe surprising, the way that the ruling came or was given?
Okay, so there was a 25%. Let me start with the 25% FCT, and of course, it's something that had to do with interpretation, the constitutional interpretation. And I think listening to the ruling was the fact that, look, the Constitution is a living document, and that you just sit down and you look at the words, and you have to think of the future generation. I think just trying to paraphrase what they said, which fantastic, that's okay to me. But what was surprising was that the kind of energy that was deployed when they were talking about 25% FCT was not the kind of energy that was deployed when it came to the forfeiture of the $460,000 because that was also a constitutional interpretation, and it was so the way the justice just sort of like the ruling just went off. The court was like glib about it. Oh, okay, this is not an issue. This is what the Constitution says. Let's move on and everything. And then you didn't see that energy when it came to 25% FCT. That was when sitting down, they would say that, oh, we have to look at this. Yes, when it comes to judicial interpretation, there are always different rulings on it, and then it depends on the judges to be able to choose the one that they want to do. And I think looking at the 25%, I could see they were like, okay, they were looking at sort of like the purposive approach was what they used. But in terms of the other one, we didn't see that also to be able to say this is like a living document. On the issue of Kashim Shettima's double nomination, I think part of the things that were said was that, is it pre-election matters? One, first, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not standing in for anybody. I'm speaking for myself as a citizen, as an active Nigerian citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So the lawyers will come and do their own bit. But what I saw was the fact that, and what I heard yesterday at the tribunal was the fact that, oh, this double nomination is the business of the party. It's like pre-election matter. It's supposed to be the business of the party. You shouldn't come and be interfering in what they do. But how does that even make sense? Yes, I agree. I think there was an earlier ruling on that. I agree, before the election, it wasn't the business of the other candidate. It was that of within the party if anybody decides that, oh, there was a double nomination or not. But the moment there was an election, then that means that he had put himself in a race with other people. Then it becomes the business also of other parties to be able to say, hey, there was a double nomination here. There shouldn't have been a double nomination. So it goes beyond party affairs the moment that you put yourself on the ballot paper and you're running with other people.
All right. As an active Nigerian citizen, how do you sense that the general populace accepted this judgment? And where do you think that Nigerians are going from here, the Nigerian citizens who may have been displeased about this? We hear that the Labour Party has, of course, rejected this judgment. Where do you see Nigerians going from here? Some of the reactions that I have seen on social media are people who are now advocating for relocation, mass migration. You know, we're seeing a lot of conversations about Japa. So from your perspective, how do you sense Nigerians are handling this, and where do you see Nigerians going from here?
I don't think I'll be in a position at this moment to be able to say the way Nigerians are handling this, because I was in court for, I think, over 13 hours yesterday at the tribunal, and then I came in. I've slept, woken up, and I'm doing this right now. Yes, I've seen some of the comments on social media. But I'm going to talk about, let me even talk about myself and the judiciary. The first thing that I'm going to talk about, before I even talk about the Japa issue and all of that, is the fact that, you know, the judiciary is supposed to be the last resort of the common man. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, the judiciary has become the plaything of corrupt politicians. And I say that with all sense of responsibility. And I've been saying that even before now. And it's one thing. That's why you see arrogantly that the politicians will, you know, rig election, do all sorts of things, kill, maim, get into office, and then arrogantly say to you, go to court. It's almost as if, okay, we own that place, just go there and do whatever it is that you're going to do. And sitting down yesterday at the tribunal, I think I sort of like got that reinforcement that says, hey, whatever you need to do, if you really want to get this, if you really want to get into office, go in there, you know, rig election, kill people, whatever it is, ensure that you are declared. That was why we even saw, I think it was Adamawa State, where literally almost sort of like people came. It was this, and I can't remember the whole the correct designation of the person who came to just announce a gubernatorial election and a win, and sort of like, irrespective, just getting to declare and then go to court and get it. So let me, sitting down there, and for those who listen to the judgment, just hearing the justices that are supposed to be unbiased, talking about gleefully and happily, telling us that, oh, you think you can just come in here and be able to you know, I could try to get the right words they use, but in my own English, you think you can just come in here and be able to prove that election was rigged? You think it's that easy? You think it's drinking coffee? And you could see the way the justices were they were almost like counsels to the respondents. And there was this anger, there was this seated anger from them, because we could see their faces, even though they had hidden their faces from Nigerians. You could see the anger coming from them when they were talking about the petitioners and saying, how dare you bring your petition to before us? And I'm thinking, why do you have a job? Is it not for people to bring in the petitions and people that are aggrieved to be able to come? If we didn't have people being aggrieved, if you can't go, why do we have the courts? There's no need for the courts. So yesterday, it's that reinforcement of that corrupt politics, of rigging, of do whatever it takes for you to be declared. That's all that matters. And then when you get declared, the court is going to be there and just pat your back. And even in all the statements, you see when it came to the respondents, you could see how the almost like the justices were sort of like on their side. And I think there was one of them who said, do you think we are going to go to market and get evidence? No. Nobody expected you to go to market and go and get evidence, but you were expected to be unbiased. You were not expected for your body language to be gleeful, for you to have ecstasy, for you to be on top of the moon when you were talking about the respondents, and then for you to be angry, for you to be coming at those when you're talking about the petitioners. No, that's not what justice is all about. Just because you know you're going to be in a court where people are going to be saying, oh, as the court pleases, at the court, people. I'm looking forward to one day when it's no longer that, oh, as the court pleases, but something like, oh, if that's what justice it's all about. And this is not, and for the things about Nigerians, and I'm going to say this is not about whether, oh, the person I supported was the one that was declared winner, or as a petitioner, his ruling, this thing was thrown out and all of that. No, that's not the issue. The issue is about the process. And I remember in 2016, when Buhari's government went after judges, corrupt judges, as he had said, and arrested them, the manner in which it was done, I was strongly against that. I said no, because process matters. The rule of law matters in everything that you're doing. Even if it favors you today, it doesn't mean that you break the rule of law. You must ensure there's rule of law. You must ensure everything is done within the ambit of the law. You must ensure that the processes are followed the way they're supposed to be followed. And I keep taking, and I know a lot of Nigerians were happy. They were supporting, like, okay, yes, we have too many corrupt judges. I said, but that's not the way to do it. And this is what we're talking about today. There are so many things, even when it comes to INEC. Imagine a court that had given orders for INEC to bring in their materials. The INEC refuses to do that. I think INEC, they were subpoenaed, they weren't getting the whole coming out. Yesterday was the first time that I was at the tribunal, because I was out of the country for 5 months, and I came a day after the tribunal, this thing had ended. But I knew I followed some of those conversations, and INEC were called in, and you could see the ruling, the justices, gleefully saying to us, saying to Nigerians and all of us that, oh, do you think that any political party that wants to run for office must ensure that they have their own materials, they have their own resources, they should not depend on INEC? The same INEC that you had said should give access to these lawyers, and they were being denied. The same INEC that you have given them orders and they have refused to obey you, and you're not seeing that as disrespect on the court. You're not seeing that when you make certain pronouncement, when you give certain orders, these orders are not being followed by the executive. You don't see that. That really is surprising, because, but I will round up here, because I'm sure there are a lot of questions that you want to ask me, and there are a lot of things that I need to say also. I will round up here to say that, look, the judiciary, Nigerian judiciary, is the one that is actually on trial, and it's left for them to let justice be seen. And one other thing, quickly let me add, is the fact that they decided to go live when they were going to give their judgment. The same people who didn't go live when they were bringing evidences before them. So they could say, oh, well, you didn't give, there's no evidence here, there's no this here, there's no this, because they're going to have a bunch of people that are going to be saying, as the court pleases, right? And so, but if they really wanted transparency, now they're trying to look at it, they're transparent, which is not even that, because they were too afraid to show their faces before Nigeria and before the world, and they asked the media people not to show their faces and be showing those that were listening to them. They should have ensured that there was transparency, there was openness, there was live transmission, so that everybody will be able to see this same evidence that they say had not been given to them. Let people see the process, because of course they didn't get to do that.
All right, it's a whole lot, to unpack, from yesterday, and I did see you, on television all through. It felt like the longest day ever for Nigerians. But I want to know what you think should happen next. There's doubts as to whether the Labour Party should approach the Supreme Court or not. Whether, of course, it's candidate Peter Obi should approach the Supreme Court, or, just let it go at this point. What would you think, should be the next steps that should be taken? Do you trust that the Supreme Court might maybe interpret things different? Even if there's, there's a lot of people who believe that the current judgment, is fair, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, sure. There are people who believe that people being killed during election is fair. There are people who believe that elections being rigged is fair. There are people who believe that it doesn't matter how many people are killed as long as somebody gets into office. So that's okay. For those who see the judgment as fair, it's their own personal opinion, and they're very much welcome to it. when you talk about trusting the judiciary, even before this ruling, even before going to court, when Nigerians talk about the judiciary, I say I don't have any business trusting the Nigerian judiciary. I don't trust the Nigerian judiciary. The only thing is to overwhelm them with evidence. And that's still my take. And yes, Labour Party should go to the Supreme Court. Yes, Peter Obi should go to the Supreme Court. Mr. Peter Obi is a fighter. If I can just say that, like someone who has closely worked with him throughout the campaign and this whole period, he's a fighter. So I mean, we've seen it. We've seen his antecedent. Anambra, I mean, nobody expected it was going to happen, and it did happen. One of the things we must understand is that systems must be tried, and no matter how bad it is, no matter how difficult it is, don't give up. Good must be more tenacious than evil. Most of the time, people just feel that, please. Also, I just see you put my quote. Please put it in full, because if you just say I don't trust the Nigerian judiciary, it doesn't make it. I don't trust the Nigerian judiciary. All I want is to overwhelm them with evidence. I think so that people get the full picture of that whole thing. Like I was saying, good must be more tenacious than evil. People feel that, I'm doing the right thing, and then we've been fighting for this. I'm going to give up, and I will move on. Move on to where? Where are you going to? If the people who are not doing this country well are not giving up, what business do you have giving up? And there's one example I always give. I always give the example of Muhammadu Buhari. He spent 12 years, every year running for office. He went to the judiciary. And that's one thing you can't take away from Muhammadu Buhari, his vindictiveness. The way he would go after everything. And when he came in 2016, he really went after those judges. But the way and manner in which it was done, it wasn't the right way. Anything that has to be done must be done within the ambit of the rule of law. And he never won. And he stayed on. And you must give him that 12 years. He kept consistently coming. And at the end of the day, he got into office to give us our disastrous leadership. Today, it's not a conversation about Muhammad Buhari, but things must, when referenced, things have to be referenced, and we have to reference that. So having said that is to say that for those, there are people who will feel they want to give up. Absolutely, it's a personal choice, whatever anybody wants to do. I've been there before. 1993, that was the first time I could vote. I was 18 years old, and then I voted, and the elections was cancelled, and I didn't vote again until 2011. And so I was angry. It took me 18 years for me to be able to. So I understand that whole feeling. But the thing is that the process we must go on, even if when you see that there is so much against you, don't just give in, because when you do that, you self-defeat yourself. We must challenge the process. We must go on. We must see this thing. And I think one of the things that Nigerians are not saying is that an amazing thing happened. There was a revolution with the 2023 election. Many people, you had people in their 70s who had never voted, who were voting for the first time. You have citizens engaged. People say that, there can never be a third party coming up. People say that, you guys, you can't do anything. 4 people tweeting in a room. At the end of the day, they had no option but to give over 6 million votes. And, one of the things that must happen is that people must look at the little wins. And while there's a setback is for you to consolidate and keep going. In the meantime, look at those little wins. What are the things that have happened? There's a governor somewhere. There are 8 senators somewhere. There are about 30-something in the House of Rep members, 70-something state houses of assembly members. And you begin to look at 2 years ago, that was an impossible. People would have said this is impossible, but you were able to remove the IM. So this is not the time to give up. This is the time to keep going. And the thing is that if you look at all of these things were done within the space of about 10 months. So if you put in 1 more year, 2 years, a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, 5 decades, we're going to get that Nigeria that we are looking for. Politics. It's how you get people elected into office, and every one of us must be engaged in that politics. I've always talked about there must be citizens' participation. We must begin to look at the legislative arm of government, because that is the bedrock of democracy. That's where laws are being made. That's this whole issue where INEC just sits down and chill. Even when they are giving orders, they don't obey orders because they have people. They have the courts that will say gleefully to petitioners that you can't expect to get anything from INEC, even though they were the occupiers of the election. That has to stop. And so you must have the situation whereby when the burden of proof should in a way also go to INEC to be able to say, let them come and prove that indeed they did give a free, fair, credible election. And so for you to be able to do that is the legislative arm of government that is going to do that. And if we're able to get people who are competent, have capacity, have character, who are patriotic, who want the best for Nigeria, get into office, then they will begin to make those laws that, you know, we be for the betterment of Nigeria.
Absolutely.
This whole issue of you are having tribunal, let me just round up on this, I'll quickly do that. This whole issue of you are having tribunal going on while somebody is already sworn into office, it has to stop. And so we must have, and it's the lawmakers that are going to amend the Electoral Act and do the needful and ensure that there are laws whereby we have to wait until all tribunals, everything is concluded before someone is sworn into office.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing those points. You know, the president has received several congratulatory messages from different people. We do have the governor of Lagos State who has also congratulated him as well, sharing his thoughts. He says, I hereby congratulate the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu, on his well-deserved victory at the Presidential Election Tribunal Court. He's also enjoined Nigerians across party lines to team up with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to deliver the real dividends of democracy to Nigerians through the renewed hope agenda of his administration. And finally, he says, today's judicial verdict is victory for democracy and the rule of law. And that's where I'd like us to, you know, look at the victory for democracy and the rule of law. Now, if we check what exactly the rule of law is, it is the supremacy of the law over the rulers and the ruled. We also talk about the independence of the judiciary. It's a conversation we've been having for the longest time. And like you mentioned earlier, I mean, you did say that it is the judiciary that seems to be on trial here, and you've asked that Nigerians overwhelm them with evidence. Lots of Nigerians have shared the same issues, the same bias that you have against the judiciary. A number of Nigerians have shared that same bias. They've made reference to the fact that the judiciary hasn't really been independent or hasn't been considered as supreme. Cases in point, the Godwin Emefiele case, where he had been held for the longest time. I was not brought before a court of competent jurisdiction. Even like the laws have not been upheld. The Bawa is still been in, he's still held in detention. We don't know exactly what the case is. So how exactly do we get to the point where we know that there are already established laws and these laws can be respected? And even when the judges and the judiciary gives a judgment, we are certain that these judgments will be respected by all the other arms of the government. How do we get there?
So for us to be able to get there, we have to get, first of all, the independence of the judiciary. And that independence of the judiciary also has to come into place. How are judges, are they appointed or whatever? How do you get to be a judge? Is there an open, transparent way of people being taken in? I know there was a list that came out the last time, and Nigerians cried out. I didn't pay as much attention because it's something that I don't have the knowledge for it, but it's part of the things I'm going to really be paying attention on going on is how do we get these judges? Because there were a lot of talk of nepotism. Judges' children, either their wives or their whatever, getting into it. So we need to have the process that brings in them, because if the process that brings you in, it's not a free, fair process. If it's a corrupt process, there's no how that you're not going to be corrupt at the end of the day. If it's a process that does not follow the rule of law, there's no how you're going to continue to follow the rule of law because you didn't get into the system based on the rule of law. So the first thing we need to look at, how do the judges and everything, how do they even get in there? Independence of the judiciary, actually, there is none. And apart from that is to see there's so much blatant disrespect for the judiciary. And the judiciary themselves do not see how disrespected they are. Whether there's a hold over them. The judiciary arm of government is supposed to be the most powerful, if you look at it. I know all of them, they are all independent of each other. But at the end of the day, because these are the people who actually interpret the law. And what their word is final. And even if the legislative arm of government do make laws, it's the judiciary that will interpret it. And when they do that, it's final, except the legislative arm of government have to go back and redo the law or make another act. But yet, unfortunately, in Nigeria, the executive arm of government, which is supposed to be the weaker one of all of them, is the one that seems to be more powerful because one, they control the pulse of the nation, and another, of course, they control security agencies. Let me digress a little bit. Yesterday, one of the justices that read out I hope that's what they are called anyway.
Yes.
That's the word. That read
Yeah.
out her own judgment. Some of the things she was saying was the fact that, oh, you people think you can sit in social media and intimidate us and intimidate the judiciary. And I'm thinking, excuse me? You've been intimidated even in your own court. Look at the executive that we have right now. To me, it's still an illegitimate one. We're still on it. They didn't win the election. That's my own personal opinion. And they've come in here. The NSA is there with you. Almost the chief of staff, like they were all in that court, and then all around you were security agencies who were armed, who you've been told that, oh, maybe they're there to protect you. But no, they're there to intimidate you. That's the real intimidation. It's not the intimidation of citizens who are crying on social media and say ICE on you. Why are you afraid of ICE or the judiciary of ICE? Are you to the extent that you couldn't even face the camera, you couldn't face the world, you couldn't face your own citizens, you had to hide behind cameras to be reading your judgment and going on in that manner. So having said that, is to come back to the crux of the matter to say we have a situation in Nigeria where politicians go around to go and shop for judicial pronouncements, for rulings. So you see somebody will leave Imo State and go all the way to Jigawa State to a court to be able to get a ruling. You see someone probably will leave Kano State and go all the way to Edo State or Delta or Ondo or whatever to go and get a ruling. Politicians have been doing that because they know it's like almost like judges are on market. It's almost like the judiciary, it's a marketplace that it's, as long as you have the money, as long as you have whatever hold it is that you have, you can get whatever you want. And some of them, you see them contradicting each other. One court of appeal in one place, we give a ruling. Another court of appeal on the same matter, we give a different ruling from that one. You're thinking, what's going on here? And so that's why it's the judiciary itself that is on trial. You find that situation. For example, let's use the words of Godwin Emefiele. You know, when people say there's no karma, I always laugh. I say there is karma, but it's just that it doesn't come with receipt. But in the case of Emefiele, you could see the receipt just out there because it happened so soon. But having said that, Emefiele has a right. He's a citizen. He has a right to rule of law. He has a right to fair hearing. He has a right to have a good process. He has a right to an independent judiciary. And yet you have a situation whereby they give a ruling that a bail should be given to him, and that bail is not done. And then they bring the same person to, and it's not just Emefiele now. Emefiele also did the same thing. When court rulings, he refused to obey court rulings. We saw even the EFCC, former EFCC chairman. Now it's almost like, oh, they're reaping what they sow, but they shouldn't reap it because that's not the way things should be. You find a situation, if we're taking Emefiele, for example, he has been given, the orders have been given for him to be released on bail, right? And then that is not carried out. And they come back to the court, and the judge is not seeing that as an affront on him or her, that look, the order that you had given before, that it was not followed through, and then they continue as if it's business as usual. You look at the former EFCC chairman, Bawa, that has been in incarceration. Why are you keeping him? If you have evidence against him that he has done something, fine, charge him to court, get him prosecuted, duly prosecuted, throw him in jail if he's done something. The same thing with Emefiele, the same thing with anyone, the same thing with myself. If I've done any wrongdoing, prosecute. But don't just carry someone and abduct the person and put the person and refuse to bring the person out.
Those are really, maybe just, representations of what the Nigerian judiciary still is, like, and of course, Nigerian criminal justice system generally still is. The new government doesn't seem to have made any changes or, brought in any energy to show that, things will be done different, this time. But, I would like that you also quickly react to this post that was made by Renu Mockery. And of course, it's because I asked earlier what happens next. There are those who have spoken about, 2027, that the Labour Party should go and re-energize and prepare itself for the next elections, and maybe to stand a stronger chance then. Maybe, of course, they should, consider pairing, or working hand in hand with other political parties. Maybe the PDP, maybe the NNPP, in 2027, of course, to give it a stronger chance. But quickly, I want you to react to that and also to this. Peter Obi, I am waiting for you in 2027 and 2031. God sparing my life. Anyway, he wrote a lot of things here that I'm not going to share. But anyway, he goes all the way to say, nobody has suffered from your ill-mannered followers like my family and I, and he will do everything possible to make sure that Nigeria never makes the mistake of electing Peter Obi as president. So quickly react to that, and of course the discussions on 2027.
For me, Reno Omopi is a non-issue that I cannot waste my time discussing. Honestly, it will be an absolute waste of my time sitting down and talking about Reno Omopi and whatever it is that he has tweeted. I'm sorry, I can't do that. No, I can't disrespect myself to an extent where I'm sitting down and actually having a discussion on him. Nah, it's not worth it.
All right.
All right, go ahead. To talk about the 2027, discussions. They're not Reno Omopi now. But those who are saying that the Labour Party should go and reorganize itself, and maybe, think about partnering with other political parties, building up alliances with other political parties, and, to stand a chance in 2027.
So for me, I'm going to take the 2027, if I'm looking at the 2027 election from the point of view of citizens right now, because
we're struggling with the connection. We're hoping that we can sort that out within the next few seconds. We're still speaking with Aisha Yesufu, of course, who is an active Nigerian citizen, and she's here sharing with us her thoughts on the judgment by the court.
In 2018,
okay. Are you here with us? Yes, we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So I was saying that as someone who is a member of, I was a member of the Red Card movement, and in 2018 we went around Nigeria trying to tell people that, look, the power belongs to the people. The office of the citizen is the highest office in the land, and that people. The citizens are the ones who actually vote. We did red card to APC and PDP and say, look, you can actually vote for competent candidates and not just feel that, oh, you have to be obliged to vote for political parties. So I'm going to bring and see what has happened now. It's a tremendous thing. One of the things that people don't understand is that what has happened there, it's like, it's something that is impossible, but the IM was just removed and it became possible. And history is slow when you're living it. I always say this: history is slow when you're living it. And the example I always give, I always use Nelson Mandela. I say in one sentence, people will say Nelson Mandela went to prison for 27 years and he came out and he became president of South Africa. Yeah, it's very easy to say. But those 27 years, if you look at it, I don't have time to break it down because I start from seconds to minutes all the way to decades, and having 2 decades and 7 years. It wasn't a short time, it was a long time. So when you're living history, it's almost as if it's so slow. And then sometimes people forget to look at the little wins. People forget to see, oh my goodness, the fact that Nigerians are participating in the election in this manner, the fact that Nigerians are taking ownership of the whole election. Before that, many of us thought that politics was rocket science, election was rocket science. We felt that, oh, these politicians, they have tactics. No, they don't have tactics. Most of them, what they have is just the violence. It's just how to use violence and rigging, that's all. When it comes to real tactics, meeting people, putting all of those things to get to win the mandate of the people, they really don't have it. But now citizens have participated in it and they've done so much. So that's what needs to. So I'm going to speak from the point of view of citizens to say, before we even get to 2027 election, there are by-elections that are going to be coming up because some elections are going to be cancelled. Unfortunately, some people might die. It happens, that's life, and all of that. And then you find out that these elections are held from time to time. If there's an election, can we focus and be able to get competent candidates into that office, especially the legislative arm of office? Begin to, have more people get it. Some of the things that need to happen, people need to participate in politics. We're either running for office because we have what it takes to give good governance, or we are helping those campaigns for those who are running into office, or helping them to raise money, or holding them accountable when they get into office. That's what I call that political activism. And so people must get into it. We must get into a place whereby we are not waiting for candidates who are running for office to be the ones to bring their money. So we must be the ones who are donating to people. So even if it's 1,000, you donate to that campaign. And what that happens then is that the issue of getting into office is no longer left in the hands of either very rich people or corrupt politicians that have stolen our commonwealth and continue to perpetuate themselves on their stooges in office. Now you now have people with competence, character, capacity, might not have the money to run for office. Election is very, very expensive. And then they are able to get people, support them to get in. Those are some of the things that we begin to look at. We need to begin to volunteer ourselves to be polling unit agents right now. And all these things I'm saying are also the things that we work towards the 2023 election. We need to have polling unit agents. For example, can we have this day come together, begin to form a database for people that volunteer to say, we want to be polling unit agents if we have 1 million, so that at every time, all over the country, there are polling unit agents who are people who are not waiting for whatever they are going to pay them. That's not what is most important in their life, but they can't volunteer for it. We are also most importantly, we need to get people into politics. Let me round up on it. It's a very long, because I spent 5 months in Washington, D.C. This is what I was working on. So we need to have people who have second jobs in politics, not people that their main job is politics. And most importantly, there must be a parallel voter, how do they call it? A parallel voter tabulation, result tabulation, whereby we are not all just dependent on INEC to be the one to give us what this is. The civil society, citizens, parties must come together and have a place whereby all the results as they are coming in real time, when they are on the day of any election, should also be sent to a particular place where it will be open to everybody, everyone can see it. And then when INEC is bringing in their own result, everybody will be able to say, okay, this is what actually came from there. Why are you giving this?
But the challenge with things like that, is that if for any reason, and I'm just, I don't want to sound pessimistic here or sound wrong here, but if for any reason that gets to court, the court, if that is not the legal way with which election results are, tabulated, then the court is going to throw that out also. Yes, you have your result, I mean, 2023 elections, there are people that still have, the results from their polling units that was different from what INEC eventually displayed. But it doesn't matter because, the courts have declared that INEC would be the one to decide which results are relevant and which ones are not relevant. So there's all of that. From what you're saying.
Let me just quickly interrupt on that. That you're totally right. That is not something that can be brought before the court as evidence. I mean, we had a Nigerian judiciary in 2015, and I think I'm going to digress on this because it's very, very important. In 2015, PDP went to court and they got the card reader to be thrown out, and they said the card reader is not admissible in court, and that was the Wike case. And yesterday I heard a lot of the Wike Dapuku Peter side case, being repeated a lot, and they were able to get that small win. But at the end of the day, it has cost them so much over the period. So you're totally right. That is not evidence that will be admissible before the court. It's not there for the legal purpose. It's there for, first of all, let there be it's almost like a mirror for INEC. Let citizens be able to say, this is where these results are coming from, and they are seeing in real time. But remember that I said something. People should volunteer to be polling unit agents. For example, if you have 1 billion polling unit agents that can be deployed at particular time for parties, it's not just ordinary people, because if I just go there, I'm not a party polling unit agent, it will not be taken as evidence. But if you have a database of people who are ready, even if it's retired people, even if it's where they're ready to play this role, and you're able to get them there, and then with that and the result. So while the result is also being sent, citizens are sending that and all of that, there's also that room of having this polling unit agents that you can get those results and take them to court and stand before the court. And hopefully we're able to get a place whereby these tribunals are live streamed. It's not the one that judges will hide and they refuse to allow live stream. Then it's only when it comes to judgment they will say they should be live streamed where their faces are not shown.
All right, as we wrap up the conversation, I'd like to ask what your thoughts are as to how this whole scenario, how the foreign community sees it. You've been in Washington, D.C. for 5 months. We also know that the European observers' report was thrown out. It wasn't admitted, but they did speak not so favorably about the election. So give us an insight as to how the international community sees the elections that have taken place in Nigeria, as well as the current judgment by the court.
so for me, I think it was really hilarious, watching how they were talking about the European community. And I hope when, the EU report and everything and all of that, I hope also when the EU brings their money, they will also have the guts to throw the money out and say they don't need to collect it. Because I always believe that Nigerians, we don't need aid. We just want the international community, especially the Western world, to not give room for corrupt politicians to steal our money and be able to have safe havens that they will hide this money in the form of investment or whatever it is. One of the things, even as I spent my time in DC, that I kept constantly saying was the fact that, look, we must have a universally accepted standard for what free, fair, credible election means. Situation whereby election in Washington, D.C., election in the United States of America, in France, in Britain, in Germany, and all of that, is election that it's free, fair, nobody is injured, nobody is killed, and that's what is called free, fair election. Then election in Nigeria, places like Gabon, Zimbabwe, and Equatorial Guinea, and all of that are places where, if 200 people die, it's okay. No, that's not acceptable. The world must have a universally accepted standard of election, of what free, fair, credible election is, because that's the only way that you can ensure that the people get whatever kind of governance they deserve. It doesn't matter, and I'm going to repeat this today. I said the outcome of the election, like the 20, one of the things we've not spoken about, I think, is on INEC not following its guidelines. That's one of the things. The court, yesterday's ruling gave that INEC that, INEC cannot follow. I think it's very important. So I'm going to say, I think you're saying we don't have much time. The fact is that, yes, the judgment I was given yesterday, yes, the Electoral Act gives INEC the opportunity to choose the manner in which it was going to run the election, transmit results, and all of that. But the thing is that I think there's also another rule, even though I'm not a lawyer, that says the moment it chooses that guideline, it must follow that guideline. But what we saw with the ruling yesterday was the fact that I don't know who said something about judicial rascality during the Ahmed Lawal this, and I think that's the same thing that we've seen yesterday. It's also judicial rascality, because if you're saying to INEC, you can set your guidelines, but you don't need to follow it. It's setting a precedent that is going to take Nigerian election back decades, where violence is going to come back again, just like what we had when the card reader was not admissible in court. And so to also quickly say that, for example, we saw what is happening in the United States of America based on what happened on January 6, 2021. They're going after people. Even the former president, has been sort of like was taking a detail. He had his mugshot taken and all of that. If they take election like this, then they should not allow a situation whereby it's okay for anyhow election to happen in Nigeria. Like we had the former British High Commissioner saying she was fascinated by an election where people were killed in Nigeria. So I think for the international community, one of the things, there's an hypocrisy that goes on. And the thing is that they always think, as long as it's not too many people you kill, let them be stability. You people should just continue another 4 years, have this charade. And that's why we're having more military coup happening in the African region, because people are not seeing their mandate. It's not counting. It doesn't matter who you vote. Let your mandate be, whether the person is good or not. Let it be in that way.
Right,
I think just to finally say that the international community should do the needful, because countries who are fighting migration issue, and that's where the Japa issue comes in, should know that if they continue to encourage people who steal the mandate of their people to get themselves into office and continue to work for them while giving some visa ban to election riggers and whatever, what they're simply doing is that they're ensuring bad governance in these respective places, and people are going to leave their countries and go to their own countries. And I always say to that people, we are 200 million Nigerians. No matter whatever wall you build around your country, if Nigerians want to enter your country, they will enter your country.
Yeah, well, the international community, I'm sure, has, a different way of seeing things, as long as it's not interfering with their own foreign policy interests.
But it does interfere with their foreign policy, because
not directly, not directly. And that's why they've, let these, or allegedly allowed bad leadership across the continent, because, as long as they benefit from whoever it is that is in office, even if you have to stay, you are president for 50 years, doesn't matter. Whenever it is that your citizens decide to riot and get into a crisis, it's not going to affect America. They are thousands of miles away, so it's not really their problem. If you can you squeeze in your thoughts on the idea that Nigerians should fight for their countries? One of the things I saw a lot on Twitter yesterday, that, if the court doesn't, give the ruling in their favor, that or in a favorable manner, that Nigerians would have to take back their country and will have to protest and all of that. But there's also people who said, nah, not very likely.
Well, protest it's something that constitutionally is allowed. If anyone wants to protest, they can't protest. Nigerians should fight for their country. Absolutely. 2023 election, Nigerians were fighting for their country. And especially with the Nigerian youth, we've not given them an environment for them to try. They are fighting for this country. Everything is thrown to them. After the 2020 October 20 massacre, they were saying, oh, yeah, go and vote out bad leaders. Go and do politics. They went into politics. And then the next thing, the elections were rigged. And then go to court. The court, they follow the court cases. They be there. What did they get is for them to be called all sorts of things and be said, and they are told that, oh, they are online intimidating and all of that. One of the things people do not understand is that, revolution can be bloody or bloodless. When you're changing the system, the 2023 election was a bloodless revolution that happened in Nigeria, and it was not allowed to be. And if you don't allow give room for bloodless revolution, you might have a bloody revolution. It all depends. And so it's all about the people. People are already fighting for their country. And I think people who are just saying, oh, Nigerians are going to take arms, Nigerians have never done that. Whenever there are protests, they are always peaceful. They've always done that. And even when you see this thing violence being brought, it's always the Nigerian government that brings in violence. But I think that Azari Dokubo, I did hear, and his people were on the streets protesting yesterday. And somehow, it's always so funny when some protesters get government protection and cover, and then some protesters get government guns and tear gas.
Well, that totally reminds me of the quote. It reminds me of a quote that says, "All humans are equal, but some humans are more equal." I'm not quite sure how that is put, but
yeah, I think it's George. Is it George Orwell?
Yes, Animal Farm. All right.
No Nigerian is more Nigerian than any Nigerian, and we are all
absolutely
citizens of this country. And we must ensure that this country works, and it works for everybody. And we must have a country where the child of nobody can become somebody without knowing anybody. All of those people that have been benefiting from nepotism, whether they like it or not, this is a new Nigeria, and we will birth that Nigeria. And there are some of us who are not going to go anywhere. This country belongs to us. Die, now only one die we get. And anyhow, that die come, so that die we die here in our country. We are not going anywhere. So let them be ready. This point is there, we don't enter.
Aisha Yesufu, thank you so much for your time with us this morning, for joining us. We certainly wish the best, not just for us here, for Nigeria as a country. We look forward to being able to have favorable conversations about the trajectory of where our country is headed. So thank you so much for your time with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right.